As I am speaking today on Matthew chapter 14. And it's quite a book. It is not just chapter 14, but the book of Matthew. Because Matthew is the gospel written by a Jew to Jews about a Jew. Matthew is the writer, his countrymen are the readers, and Jesus Christ is the subject. Matthew's gospel is designed to present Jesus as the King of the Jews and the long-awaited Jewish Messiah. Through Old Testament quotations, Matthew documents Jesus Christ's claims to be Messiah. His genealogy from Noah to David and Joseph establish him as a son of David. His genealogy, his baptism, his messages and miracles all point to the inescapable conclusion that Jesus Christ is the King, is the Messiah. Even in death, defeat is defeated, and by his resurrection, and he achieves victory in death. The King of the Jews lives. The Old Testament prophets predicted and longed for the coming of the Anointed One, who would bring redemption and deliverance. The first verse of Matthew clearly announced the fulfillment of Israel's hope in the coming of Christ. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. That's Matthew 1:1. So, the book of Matthew was placed first in the canon of the New Testament books by the early church because it is a perfect bridge between the Old Testament and the New Testament. An important part of Matthew's structure is revealed in the phrase, "when Jesus has ended," which is used 5 times in Matthew when major discourses were completed. And there are several discourses in Matthew. The 5 key discourses of the book. The first is the Sermon on the Mount. Second is the instruction of the disciples, the parables of the kingdom, terms of discipleship, and the Olivet discourses are all listed in the book. And it is how Matthew structures his story. Jesus structures his story through Matthew. Matthew can be outlined as follows. Part 1 is the presentation of the King. And part 2 is the proclamation of the King. So this is in the earlier parts of the book. And part 3 is the power of the King. Part 4 is the progressive rejection of the King. Part 5 is the preparation of the King's disciples. And part 6 is the presentation and rejection of the King. And finally, in part 7, it is the proof of the King. And these are the sections where the different steps of what happens to Jesus in his ministry are documented by Matthew. And that was the easy part. In the outline of Matthew, we are now in part 4, the progressive rejection of the king. And I wondered about what they meant by progressive rejection. And as I tried to explain, and as was explained in the Bible, that people have been waiting for Jesus Christ and prophesying him and predicting, if you will, the coming of Christ and salvation. And it's here. It's now. He's here. And the Jews are rejecting him. They're saying, nope, not true. And this, of course, is the Jewish leadership, the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees. But after 1,400 years of prophecy, faith, trial, they're planning on killing him. But Jesus Christ is the Messiah. So this is his plan, to save all his creation with his own blood. And he also changes his teaching style. He goes from direction to parables. And there's all kinds of discussion about why he went to parables. And, you know, the negative people say it's because he's dumbing down the gospel for people who are illiterate or who are not of the Sanhedrin. But it's just, that can't and shouldn't be proven. That's just what the naysayers say. But the teaching of parables is, not only is it beautiful, they're lessons, wonderful and great lessons. Here we note a series of reactions to Christ's words and works because of increasing opposition by the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, Jewish civil leaders, and the Romans. Jesus begins to spend proportionately more time with his disciples as he prepares them for his coming death and departure. Remember the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus, in this is chapter that you know what it is. Christ went up to the mount alone to pray. And then he called his disciples up to him to teach them and give them direction and pray with them. And somewhere in that process, thousands and thousands and thousands of people showed up. They didn't announce it. They didn't send out flyers. They didn't say, coming up this week, a Jesus festival down on the sea. It just happened. Christ, Jesus, made it happen. Yep, the world got out that the Messiah was speaking, and thousands of people came to hear him. And you think that was a coincidence? I don't think so. I think it was a miracle. And then for God to deliver his message, Jesus communicated the significance of accepting or rejecting his offer of righteousness. In chapter 13 through 21:11, Jesus speaks primarily to those who already accept him. So the old term preaching to the choir, Jesus knew who he was talking to, and he was giving them instructions for his coming death, what was going to happen to him and what their opportunity is. And I'm stunned by that. Wow, I got to the end.